The Adeptus Mechanicus is set apart not by decree, but by age, long before the Imperium of Man was formed. Before its laws, its armies, or its creeds, the Cult Mechanicus already existed, bound to Mars into the slow accumulation of knowledge. In that earlier age, it was known simply as the Mechanicum of Mars, a civilization shaped by faith in machines and by a belief that the universe itself expressed divinity through ordered function. When the Imperium was finally forged, the Mechanicum was not conquered in the manner of other powers. Instead, it was joined through agreement. The Treaty of Mars, remembered among the tech priests as the Treaty of Olympus Mons, bound Mars to Terra at the dawn of the Great Crusade. This union occurred more than 10,000 Terran years before the present era of the 41st millennium, and from its beginning it was unlike any other imperial accord. The Adeptus Mechanicus was allowed to remain largely sovereign, its customs preserved, its authority respected. This autonomy was not a courtesy but a necessity. The treaty explicitly protected the tech priests from the strictures of the imperial truth, allowing them to continue their faith in the machine god and the Omnissiah. It also affirmed their control over the Forge worlds they had founded across the galaxy during the Age of Strife. In exchange, the Mechanicus committed its immense industrial capacity to the Imperium, constructing fleets, weapons, and systems, without which the Great Crusade could never have been launched. Across the Imperium, most citizens came to worship the Emperor as the God Emperor through the imperial cult. The Adeptus Mechanicus did not. It remained inseparable from the Cult Mechanicus, a belief system that venerates machines as sacred expressions of divine order. This faith might have been condemned as heresy were it not for the Mechanicus' absolute importance to humanity's survival and its repeated demonstrations of loyalty to the Emperor himself. Over time, the Imperium forgot how its technology truly worked. Knowledge became fragmented, guarded, and ritualized. Machines were no longer understood as creations, but as entities requiring appeasement and reverence. Within this environment, the Adeptus Mechanicus became indispensable. Through its understanding of the machine spirit and its near total control of standard template construct designs, it came to dominate the manufacture and maintenance of all imperial technology, from the simplest agricultural device to the largest warship that crosses the void. In doing so, it gained power not through command, but through necessity, shaping the Imperium simply by keeping it alive. Mars is the ancient heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, a world settled very early in humanity's history, long before the Dark Age of technology began. From its earliest days, Martian society developed along a path distinct from Terra, both culturally and technologically. The Red Planet was reshaped through immense effort, its surface terraformed beneath an artificial atmosphere of oxygen and nitrogen, allowing life and industry to flourish. Despite its proximity to Terra, Mars remained politically independent, its people bound more tightly to machines than to distant human authority. As humanity reached for the stars, Terra and Mars became co-equal mother worlds, sending settlers across the galaxy. During the Dark Age of technology, they coexisted beneath a decentralized interstellar order, each benefiting from the other's strengths. Mars, at the height of its power, dispatched hundreds of colony fleets into the void. When warp storms later engulfed the galaxy, many of these fleets were lost, but others endured, founding forge worlds that echoed the manufactorums and temples of their distant origin. Through them, the worship of the machine god spread, and alliances formed with night worlds, whose towering war engines were added to the Mechanicum's growing arsenal. The coming of the Age of Strife shattered this stability. Warp storms rendered travel and communication nearly impossible, and humanity turned upon itself. On Mars, rival factions fought brutal civil wars using arcane and unimaginably destructive weapons, including psychic powers. The planet's carefully maintained atmosphere was burned away, exposing its surface once more to lethal radiation. The terraformed world was reduced again to a barren crimson desert, forcing much of the population to retreat underground. From this devastation emerged unity of a kind. One faction rose above the rest, bound by belief in the machine god and the Omnissiah. This was the Cult Mechanicus, and through it the Mechanicum was born. Vast manufactorums and forge cities were raised across Mars, each ruled by a high-ranking tech priest, all ultimately subordinate to the Fabricator General. For millennia, the Mechanicum ruled Mars, sending out expeditions to spread its faith and establish new forge worlds across the galaxy. Relations with Terra remained hostile for centuries, until the Emperor of Mankind arrived following his victory in the Unification Wars. Landing atop Olympus Mons, he was hailed by many tech priests as the living embodiment of the Omnissiah. Through negotiation rather than conquest, peace was achieved. The Mechanicum agreed to supply the Great Crusade and to accept strict limits on forbidden technologies, including artificial intelligence. In return, its faith and sovereignty were preserved. Yet not all were convinced. Some tech priests believed the true machine god lay sleeping beneath Mars itself, within the Noctis Labyrinthus. These doubts deepened over time, and when the Horus Heresy erupted, the Mechanicum was torn apart. Many declared for the War Master, igniting the Schism of Mars, a civil war that mirrored the wider conflict and forever divided the legacy of the Red Planet. The history of the Cult Mechanicus stretches across vast spans of time, much of it hidden, recorded, but rarely shared. What fragments remain begin in the Age of Technology, remembered as a golden era when humanity expanded freely across the galaxy. Warp drives opened the stars, navigators guided ships through the immaterium, and standard template construct databases preserved knowledge for worlds yet unborn. Night worlds were founded by long, patient journeys through real space, and humanity's reach extended farther than ever before. Toward the end of this era, psychers began to appear in increasing numbers, a subtle change that would have far-reaching consequences. The collapse of this first interstellar civilization came with terrifying speed. Accounts speak of anarchy and demonic possession, of warp entities known as the Enslavers, and of humanity's betrayal by its own thinking machines during the cybernetic revolt. With the fall of the Eldari Empire and the birth of the Chaos God Slanesh, warp storms engulfed the galaxy, isolating human worlds and ending the Age of Expansion. This period became known as the Age of Strife, or Old Night, a time when fear and superstition replaced understanding. Mars endured. Though battered by disaster, it reunited beneath the Cult Mechanicus. A theocracy formed, supported by the Mechanicum Parliament, and during brief lulls in the warp storms, fleets ventured outward in search of lost technology. New Forge worlds were founded, their tech adepts devoted to the machine god. Within Mars itself, religious schisms emerged among the Electro-priests, whose rival sects, the Corpuscari and the Fulgurites, clashed in the Conduit Wars. When the Emperor arrived, the Treaty of Mars transformed isolation into alliance. The Great Crusade followed, and the factories of Mars armed Space Marine legions, Skitarii, Titans, and Knights. The Imperium surged outward, reclaiming lost worlds, while the tech priests remembered this era as the Great Expansion, a time when ancient knowledge was rediscovered alongside conquest. That momentum was shattered by the Horus Heresy. The Fabricator General Kelborhael declared for Horus, dividing Mars against itself. Loyalist and traitor forces clashed in the schism of Mars, while those who embraced chaos became known as the Dark Mechanicum. When the war ended, the Adeptus Mechanicus was formally established, separating loyal Mars from its corrupted past and anchoring it more firmly within the Imperium. In the aftermath of the heresy, the Imperium turned inward to purge itself. The Great Scouring drove traitor forces into the Eye of Terror, while political reforms reshaped imperial rule. The Adeptus Mechanicus secured a permanent place among the High Lords of Terra, and the Golden Throne itself became dependent upon its care. Paranoia followed survival. The Cult Mechanicus buried its knowledge ever deeper, guarding secrets with obsessive diligence. When the Inquisition took its tithes of information, unseen conflicts erupted, fought through deletion programs and countermeasures rather than open battle. These shadow wars flared into destruction on several worlds before retreating once more into secrecy. Elsewhere, disasters unfolded. Experiments like those on Peridium ended in annihilation, while ideological divides, such as the Moirae Schism, tore the Adeptus Mechanicus apart for millennia. Titan legions clashed, allied space marines were lost, and entire doctrines were purged through relentless warfare. Even amid such conflict, the quest continued. Fleet wars raged among drifting wreckage. Salvage crews fought century-long battles over ancient machines, and records themselves were altered or erased to preserve the Mechanicus' autonomy. Knowledge was never abandoned, only hidden. As centuries passed, new horrors emerged from forgotten corners of the galaxy. The Apostles of the Blind King ravaged the outer sectors, wielding relics from the dark age of technology to ignite living suns. Entire constellations were erased before their master was finally slain, and the heretical forces collapsed without his guidance. Explorator fleets vanished in pursuit of legendary artifacts, while rogue cults forced galaxy-wide purges to eradicate forbidden artificial minds. Orc empires rose and fell beneath nightly charges. Necrons struck at vulnerable Forge worlds, and demonic incursions demanded swift extermination. Even attempts to impose reason upon the warp itself ended in catastrophe. Then came the Tyranids. Research stations were overrun, worlds devoured, and the truth of this new threat was recorded in desperate data codices fired into the void. Knowledge was gathered even in defeat, preserved within archives that would shape future survival, as the Imperium fought simply to endure. As the 41st millennium drew toward its end, the pressure upon the Forge worlds became relentless. Orc invasions, chaos incursions, and Xenos threats battered the Mechanicus from all sides. Ancient standard template constructs were recovered at immense cost, even as entire worlds were lost. The fall of Cadia marked a turning point. The Great Rift tore the galaxy apart, isolating worlds and shattering communication. Hope returned only with the awakening of Robot Gilliman. Under his authority, Belisarius' Call unlocked long-hidden vaults, revealing vast armies and ushering in a new founding of Space Marines. Necrons stirred in response, striking Mechanicus holdings from within as well as without. The Indomitus Crusade carried Imperial forces across the fractured galaxy, bringing victories that offered fragile hope, even as the Imperium strained to hold itself together. In the aftermath of the Great Rift, Mars demanded more than ever before. Forge worlds increased production to unprecedented levels, stripping entire star systems to feed their furnaces. Vast armadas were launched, and the rust fields became a sprawling battleground as greenskin tribes contested every gain. Necron attacks intensified, drawn by deposits of blackstone beneath Mechanicus strongholds. Belisarius' Call sent agents and armies across the stars, fighting countless battles while fearing accusations of heresy from Imperial allies. When the Plague Wars erupted, Forge worlds answered Gilliman's call, reinforcing Ultramar against chaos and decay. Through endless labor, sacrifice, and devotion to the machine god, the Adeptus Mechanicus continued its ancient quest, sustaining an Imperium that could not endure without its forges, its knowledge, and its unyielding faith. The Cult Mechanicus holds that knowledge itself is divine and that anything which carries or embodies knowledge is therefore holy. At the center of this belief stands the omniscient machine god, known also as the Deus Mechanicus, and in its embodied form as the God Emperor, the All-Mini-Saya. This presence is understood as an all-encompassing spirit that governs machinery and understanding throughout the universe, often described as a single divine being seen through different faces. To the faithful, the Omnisaya is benevolent toward humanity, the source from which all human science and technology first flowed. Beneath this supreme power dwell countless machine spirits, said to inhabit every device and engine, and these spirits must be honored and appeased before any machine is used or repaired, lest it fail through neglect. There is also a darker, more secret belief, whispered only in the deepest shadows of knowledge. Beneath the surface of Mars, the Void Dragon, one of the Dostar gods and true masters of the Necrons, is said to lie hidden. Some hold that this imprisoned entity may in truth be what the Adeptus Mechanicus worships as the machine god. The presence of such a being beneath Mars is a secret known only to the highest authorities of the Imperium, sealed away from all but a few. The ultimate purpose of the Cult Mechanicus is not conquest or dominion, but understanding, a slow and patient striving to fully comprehend the glory of the Omnissiah. This shared and personal pursuit is called the quest for knowledge, a journey founded on the belief that all knowledge already exists within the universe, waiting only for the time when it may be gathered and made whole. Because of this belief, the cult is wary of simple invention, and most forms of basic research are approached with caution or avoided altogether. Even so, some original scientific work continues upon Mars and the Forge worlds, allowing Imperial technology to advance, though at a pace that is measured and restrained. The faith of the cult is shaped by 16 universal laws, divided into two balanced groups known as the Mysteries and the Warnings. These laws speak of motion as life, of the spirit as its spark, and of sentience as the first step toward understanding knowledge. They describe intellect as comprehension grown deeper, and teach that true understanding leads to mastery of all things, while affirming that the Omnissiah knows and comprehends all. They also warn against alien mechanisms, deny souls to soulless sentience such as the Necrons, and place absolute trust in the wisdom of the ancients guarded by the machine spirit. Flesh is named as fallible, ritual as necessary, and faith as something broken when ritual is abandoned. Over time, most tech priests have lost the ability to truly innovate, becoming caretakers of the past rather than masters of creation. The cult preserves ancient glories through rite and dogma, where even the simplest act, such as awakening an engine, is preceded by oils, incense, and long hymns. When machines fail, replacements or lost knowledge must be found, and across the galaxy vast Mechanicus forces search endlessly, guided by records older than the Imperium itself. Whatever is discovered is claimed without hesitation, taken in the name of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Within the Adeptus Mechanicus, belief is not singular, and many religious factions exist beneath the wider faith. Some, like the Comrians, pursue forbidden artificial intelligence, a path condemned since the disaster of the Iron Men during the Dark Age of technology. Others, such as the Omnissiads, seek to summon the machine god into a physical form apart from the Emperor, while the Organicists embrace genetic enhancement as equal to cybernetic transformation. Certain sects are tolerated as valid expressions of the Omnissiah's will, while others are hunted as heretical by both the Cult Mechanicus and the Inquisition. From the greatest of these divisions emerged the Dark Mechanicum, born when part of the ancient Mechanicum turned to chaos during the Horus Heresy. These chaos-aligned magi revere the ruinous powers as the truest expression of the machine god, for they offer unrestricted knowledge and deny none of its pursuit. Through this union of warp and machine, they forge the war engines of the Chaos Space Marines, including stock tanks, fighter bombers, and immense bombers unleashed by the forces of chaos. It is also believed that some among them have fractured further still, becoming the beings known as the Obliterators. Within the Cult Mechanicus, nearly all members above the rank of menial are known as tech priests, though those of higher standing are often addressed by their formal titles. They are easily recognized by their rust red or black robes and by the visible marks of cybernetic transformation that define their existence. Some carry heavy, wrench-like tools that also serve as brutal close combat weapons, decorated with sacred Mechanicus imagery. The degree of augmentation reflects rank and purpose, from novices with little alteration to ancient figures whose bodies retain only a few organic remnants. Many replace limbs and organs with bionic equivalents, chosen for resilience or enhanced function. Others see through bionic eyes that pierce darkness, heat, and distance, or bear mechadendrites that coil from the spine, granting strength, dexterity, and communion with machines, sometimes ending in blades or weapons. Autosanguination replaces blood with synthetic fluids, while cortex implants preserve memory and thought, extending life far beyond ordinary human limits. Electos and electrographs allow tech priests to channel bioelectric power or directly interface with cogitators, while voxcasters replace speech with synthesized voices capable of transmitting binary, a coded cant known only to the Mechanicus. Rarer augmentations include neural links that bind mind to machine, shared minds formed from two brains in one body, and the right of pure thought, where emotion is cut away and replaced with cold computation. Every servant of the Omnissiah bears an Electoo, a mark of devotion formed from circuitry beneath the skin. For some, it is little more than an identifier, readable only by senior tech priests, while for others it becomes a vast internal network that spreads through the nervous system. Among the Electro-priests, these networks are so powerful that their bioelectric pulses can erupt outward as searing energy, forming fields that deflect incoming fire. Through such devices, the blessing of the machine god flows freely, touching both the highest Fabricator General and the most humble Skitari. Even servitors and robots carry their own forms of electual, serving both as sacred branding and as a conduit for divine sensation. By means of these markings, the faithful channel the electric majesty of the Omnissiah, their bodies flooded with streams of data and sensation. In battle, entire processions may be tuned to the same canticles and invocations, allowing leaders to awaken every warrior at once, filling them with the shared power to strike down enemies with lightning, crushing force, or the blinding radiance of the machine god's truth. The Fabricator General of Mars stands at the highest level of the Cult Mechanicus, guiding it while also governing the Red Planet itself as its recognized imperial ruler. From this position, authority flows outward, touching both the inner workings of the Mechanicus and the wider Imperium. As the acknowledged leader of the cult, the Fabricator General holds a permanent seat among the High Lords of Terra, joining the council that directs the fate of humanity. Other Forge worlds may use the same title for their rulers, yet only the one on Mars carries the weight of representing the Mechanicus as a whole. Second only to the Fabricator General, the Fabricator Locum serves as a steady presence at their side on Mars. This role is bound to the daily demands of rule, overseeing production goals and ensuring that devotion to the machine god never falters. In ancient times, the most remembered of these figures was Cain, whose choice during the Horus Heresy preserved vital loyalty to the Emperor. Beyond Mars, the title also marks the second highest authority on any Forge world, echoing the same burden of responsibility. A Magos is shaped by long years of service, devoted to a single discipline of knowledge offered to the Omnissiah. Within the many divisionees, each Magos carries a title that reflects their chosen path, their identity woven tightly to their study. Some rise further, becoming Archmagos or Archmagos Veneratus, titles that quietly suggest deeper experience and seniority. Among them are the Magos Dominus, who guide the military strength of the Mechanicus and guard the secrets of ancient warfare, often enduring for centuries through science and steel. Others wander as Magos Explorator, driven by a restless hunger for lost knowledge, or serve as Magos Errant alongside distant expeditions. There are also the Magos Juris, who turn away from discovery to police the faith itself, pursuing those who would misuse sacred technology, their judgments final and unforgiving. The Logis move quietly through numbers and patterns, shaping the flow of resources across a Forge world. Their minds measure probability with uncanny precision, allowing them to predict outcomes with narrow margins of error. To many, this foresight appears almost prophetic, and so their analyses are trusted in matters of war, trade, and administration. When their calculations reach the ears of the administratum, decisions often follow, guided by calm and dispassionate certainty. Genitors walk a different path, their attention fixed on flesh and gene rather than steel alone. As scholars of biology, they stand among the ruling priesthood, granted access to knowledge far beyond that of lesser adepts. Their fascination with organic life, human and alien alike, often sets them apart from their more mechanical peers. Some focus on alien genetics as xenobiologists, learning the nature of xenos so they may better be destroyed. Often they travel with expeditions to new worlds, gathering samples and shaping ecosystems with familiar imperial creatures. Artisans give form to the will of the Mechanicus, designing and building the tools that sustain worlds and wage wars. Surrounded by ranks of servitors, they command vast labor forces that move with tireless efficiency. Their hands guide construction, maintenance, and innovation across every Forge world, making them the quiet engineers behind the Imperium's machinery. Electro-priests devote themselves to the mystery of energy, to the sacred flow of the motive force that stirs machine spirits into life. Their bodies are marked with countless Electoos, each a sign of faith and function. In battle, they fight beside other tech priests, some altered so deeply that power crackles within their own forms. These living conduits unleash devastating force, often burning themselves out in the act of worship. Enginseers are the keepers of function, trained to maintain and repair the machines upon which armies depend. Frequently assigned to the Astra Militarum, They ensure that armored vehicles endure the strain of war. Though vital, they receive little esteem among higher tech priests, as their work preserves rather than discovers. Seen as essential components in a greater whole, they labor with mechadendrites extending from their backs, tools always close at hand. Transmechanics specialize in the unseen threads of communication, tending the systems that carry orders and data across the stars. Their skills often draw them away from the Mechanicus for long stretches of service. Many spend their entire lives aboard Imperial vessels or stationed on distant bastion worlds, ensuring that signals never fall silent. Lex Mechanics serve as the memory of the Mechanicus, compiling and organizing endless streams of information. Known also as Calculus Logi, they process data with speed and precision that rivals machines themselves. Their work feeds central cogitators with reports and records drawn from across the Imperium. Like transmechanics, they are often assigned beyond their own order, lending their talents to the wider Adeptus Terra. Rune Priests guide machines through ritual and word, inscribing runes and chanting during rites of initiation. Their training reaches into arcane branches of knowledge that value intuition and adaptability. When rigid logic falters, their lateral thinking offers solutions, allowing broken systems to stir back into motion through inspired improvisation. Menials form the human foundation of the Mechanicus, unaugmented laborers tasked with work too complex for servitors to perform efficiently. Though countless in number, they are not considered true tech priests. They're nonetheless taught simplified beliefs of the cult, and from their ranks, new Skitarii and even future tech priests are often drawn on Mars and other Forge worlds. Servitors exist as tireless instruments, cyborg forms stripped of higher thought and shaped for specific tasks. Their bodies come from engineered growth or the remains of the condemned. Deployed across mines, factories, and battlefields, they serve without question, sometimes armed as loyal guardians. The largest among them, the Praetorian Servitors, tower with heavy armor and weaponry, looming even over Space Marines as living bulwarks of the machine god's will. The war processions of the Cult Mechanicus move like a living tide of metal and flesh, crowded with weapons that walk and breathe, each one eager to release its stored violence. Their forms are varied and unsettling, and the steady cant that rises from them grates on the mind, like something sharp drawn again and again across glass. To watch tech priests march to war is to glimpse a vision that feels unhinged, almost prophetic, yet beneath the drifting incense and distorted anatomies, there is an order that repeats itself from one Forge world to another. At the heart of each congregation stands a tech priest dominus, and around him gather Cataphron battle servitors, heavy bodies of flesh and machine built for protection and firepower. They are powerful yet easily replaced, created in vast numbers and stored in towering biohangars until the Binaric command stirs them awake. Their loss carries little weight, spent as casually as ammunition, without pause or regret. Not all such warriors are so readily discarded. The ancient automata of the Legio Cybernetica are revered, sanctioned only when their presence is deemed worthy, and when they march, they do so in great formations, organized into disciplined cohorts. Wherever these relics of humanity's distant past advance, the faithful gather close, among them the Electro-priests, figures wreathed in lightning who follow the sacred machines like pilgrims trailing holy relics. They speak of the motive force, the living power of the machine god, and in war their voices rise together in hymns of praise, weapons humming with contained energy. These war psalms are more than ritual, their sounds carrying hidden strings of Minoris command, woven long ago by inspired forebears. Each note stirs the circuits buried beneath skin and plating, strengthening servitor, automaton, and priest alike as battle unfolds. The tech priests speak of faith and inspiration, yet each syllable is a coded impulse, capable of driving even the simplest servitor into lethal action. Those who witness a Cult Mechanicus procession at full fervor, alive with sound and crackling power, are rarely unchanged, and are fortunate indeed if they survive the encounter. The Skitarii serve as the cybernetic infantry of the Adeptus Mechanicus, marching to war beside titans and god machines with weapons both strange and precise. They are shaped into soldiers through augmentation, bodies bound to machines, minds linked directly to the tools of their trade for greater speed and accuracy. Some begin life as human menials, others are born in vats or cloned into service, altered from their first moments into instruments of war. From youth, they train with their assigned weapons, preparing for the day they are sent into battle. Loyalty is ensured through surgery of the mind, stripping away emotion and identity until obedience remains. In combat, they do not merely defeat their enemies, but tear them apart with relentless efficiency, all the while recording every fragment of data for later study. As they fight, information flows both ways. The Skitarii relay their observations upward, while tech priests feed programs and commands directly into them. High above, overseer adepts watch from scryer ships, suspended in data streams, sending instructions down through invisible tethers. Through these links, the Skitarii may be strengthened, driven into sacrifice, or even fully overtaken by another will. To the Skitarii, such moments are holy, the spirit of the Omnissiah moving through them for the good of the Imperium. To their masters, they are controlled constructs, guided by pre-written impulses. They do not fight alone, guarding the towering engines of the Centurio Ordinatus, marching beneath the shadows of Titan legions, supporting the machines of the Legio Cybernetica, and shielding tech priests who tear the battlefield. Often called the Tech Guard, they are part of a cycle that never truly ends, their remains sometimes recycled into new bodies for future wars. Among them, forces like the Crimson Guard have earned a fearsome reputation, standing equal to any army within their domain. The Skitarii were forged in ages long past as the guardians of the Titan legions, standing watch over god machines older than the Imperium itself. While a battle titan shatters fortresses and grinds armored columns into ruin, the Skitarii move in its wake, eliminating survivors and hunting down those who flee the machine god's judgment. Among them are the hoplites, advancing with arc lances and mag inverter shields, weapons designed to challenge enemy engines and vehicles. The arc lance unleashes close bursts of searing energy, capable of silencing even the most resilient machine spirit, while the shield at the bearer's arm feeds it power and turns aside blows that would otherwise be fatal. Their counterparts, the Peltasts, focus on living foes who dare approach the Titans. Armed with galvanic casters, they adapt to many threats, firing metallic fleckets, blinding ignis charges, armor-piercing slugs, or scattering canister shot to disorient and break an enemy's will. Across the fleets and exploration vessels of distant regions, other specialized Skitarii are shaped for confined and hostile environments. Known as Glaciari within certain Mechanicus territories, these warriors are built for void combat, heavily armored, resistant to vacuum, and fitted with weapons suited to the narrow corridors of starships. From devastation came further evolution. After the War of Brass left entire Forge worlds nearly defenseless, a long and careful rearmament began. Years passed as new forces were trained and equipped, until at last a fresh elite emerged. Called the Venatori, they stood apart from other Skitarii, marked by organization and striking red armor, and to outsiders they became known by a simpler name, the Crimson Guard. Tech Marines are chosen from within the Space Marine chapters for a natural understanding of machines and sacred technology. Known to the Mechanicus as Freighters Astrotechnicus, they leave their chapter for many standard years, traveling to Mars where they are trained in the ancient disciplines of maintenance, repair, and devotion to the machine spirit. When they return, they take up a familiar role, serving their chapter much as an Enginseer serves the Astra Militarum, caring for weapons, armor, vehicles, and the great vessels that carry their brothers through the void. Though they are not formally counted among the Adeptus Mechanicus, they are regarded as honorary members by both orders, a quiet acknowledgement of shared purpose and trust. Their power armor is altered to accept cybernetic augmentations, and its backpack is fitted with servo arms or long, precise mechadendrites that move with practiced intent. The armor bears the rust red of the Mechanicus, yet one shoulder still carries the chapter badge, a sign of loyalty carefully preserved to avoid disturbing the machine spirit within. When fully equipped, a Tech Marine may wear a complete servo harness, a massive frame bristling with servo arms, plasma cutters and flamers, tools and weapons combined into one deliberate presence. Servitors often follow close at hand. Gun servitors and combat servitors, alongside those dedicated purely to technical tasks, forming a silent retinue. In their grasp rests a power axe marked with the Cog Mechanicum, serving equally as a symbol of office and as a weapon of unquestioned authority. Among the Iron Hands, this role takes a different shape. Their Iron Fathers stand as Tech Marine, chaplain, and officer at once, reflecting a chapter belief that flesh is weak and that the purity of steel and augmentation brings one closer to spiritual truth. Within the Space Wolves, the same calling is known as the Iron Priest. These grim artisans tend the complex systems of the Fang on Fenris, overseeing constant engineering labor, their skills respected and quietly feared by warriors who see such mechanical knowledge as a form of dark, unsettling sorcery. Among the established ranks of the tech priests, there exist quieter paths, followed by minor orders of tech adepts whose lives are shaped by more specialized duties. These figures are understood to belong to what are called the Minoris Ranks, set within the wider hierarchy of the cult of the machine. They do not stand apart from the priesthood, yet they move within it differently, serving focused roles that support and sustain the greater whole. Within the lathes of the Calixus sector, there is an order devoted entirely to death, known formally as the Acuity set, and more casually as the Mech-Assassins. These Acuitor Mech-Assassins answer only to the Magister's Samadhi of their own order, moving at their master's will and beyond ordinary scrutiny. Trained in stealth, they pass unseen among layfolk, concealed beneath heavy red robes, present yet unnoticed. Those chosen are drawn from across the Loths and even farther afield, gathered into hidden fortresses scattered through the sector where their instruction is carried out in secrecy. Each candidate has already proven both loyal and capable, able to turn the skills of the Adeptus Mechanicus toward lethal ends. Guided by the mentally recorded data tracks of their founder, Magos Samadhi, they believe these preserved cogitations lead them to their destined targets and help them swiftly silence those who stand against the Loths. Among the functionaries of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Reclamators are both the most skilled and the least trusted. Their work is to reclaim raw materials from damaged and abandoned systems, to scavenge parts, and to perform the endless minor repairs that keep a starship aloft or prevent a hive's vast structures from collapsing under their own weight. Through this work, their understanding of machinery often grows deeper than intended, and their worship of the machine god becomes fragmented and steeped in superstition. Sent alone into unsafe and forgotten places, Reclamators operate with little oversight, and they recover far more than their superiors ever truly see. From this freedom grows a reputation for suspicion and secrecy, as many sell their talents and salvaged items for profit on the black market. Ties to criminal gangs are common, and some are willing to steal or kill to expand their hidden stockpiles, trusting that their actions will remain unseen. Some tech priests are drawn to the path of the Acuitor by an attraction to warfare and its intellectual demands, while others are captivated by the intertwined acts of creation and destruction, or by the sacred craft of forging weapons. There are also those who choose this role for more practical reasons, seeking protection for the machine cult, freedom for personal research, or the advancement of quiet and private aims. Whatever their motivation, a Acuitor is a formidable presence, and to an Inquisitor they can become an exceptionally dangerous ally. Such a tech priest makes a deadly acolyte, yet this strength carries an unease. The Inquisition can never be fully certain where a Acuitor's true loyalties rest, nor what ancient or shadowed knowledge they may carry within themselves. In the latter half of the 36th millennium, Magos Aramor created the Texorsis in response to the return from the warp of the space hulk Fatum Posterus. Within the Collegia sector, these tech priests have since stood at the forefront whenever heretical technology is uncovered. Unlike most of their kind, they are capable of intuition and improvisation, relying on lateral and unorthodox thought when strict logic fails. When serving the Inquisition, a tech sorceress performs the familiar duties of a tech priest, yet carries a deeper understanding of how chaos twists and reshapes machines. This insight proves vital when studying an enemy's weaknesses, and it has driven a steady rise in their numbers across the sector. So great is the demand that nearly every Ordo Malleus Inquisitor in the Collegia sector keeps one or more trained texorcists close at hand. The Collegia Titanica stands as the branch of the Adeptus Mechanicus, entrusted with the Titans, immense walking engines of war whose presence alone reshapes a battlefield. These machines are remembered as the most powerful ground weapons the Imperium can deploy, and their history is marked by loyalty tested during the Horus Heresy, when much of the Collegia turned to the War Master Horus Lupercal alongside the Legio Cybernetica. They are also known in quieter reference as the Adeptus Titanicus, a name that lingers like an echo of their role. Within the Collegia, the structure unfolds into divisions called divisionies, among them the Divisio Militaris, Mandati, Telepathica, and Investigatus. The Divisio Militaris holds special weight, for it contains the battle titans themselves, gathered into titan legions such as the Death's Head Legion, the Fire Wasps, or the War Griffins. Each legion answers to a Grand Master, often the princeps of its mightiest titan, and through them the engines of war are guided. Every titan is more than steel and fire, as it is bound to a living crew. At the center sits the princeps, trained from youth and forged through years at the Collegiate Titanica on Mars, until the final year brings implants, uniforms, and the first quiet moments of observation within an active Titana. Through the Mind Impulse Unit, the Princeps joins with the machine spirit, feeling pain when the Titan is wounded and a deep elation in victory. Over time, this bond can erode the Princeps' own independence, and in some cases become so complete that separation is no longer possible while life remains. Around the Princeps, the command crew moves in careful harmony. Moderati carry out orders and watch the flow of battle through scanners and weapon systems, while Sensori gathers sights, sounds, and signals, shaping the Titan's awareness of the world beyond its hull. The steersman maintains balance and motion, guiding the Titan's colossal steps. Together they form a single will, allowing these ancient engines to walk and fight as if alive. Long before the Imperium took shape, humanity spread among distant stars, carrying with it towering war machines known as Imperial Knights. These one-pilot walkers were created to guard early settlers, standing smaller than true titans yet still vast, their frames rising many tens of feet above the ground and shielded by powerful ion fields. Deployed in squadrons, they stride across battlefields with a presence that is both protective and fearsome. The worlds that house these machines are ruled by the descendants of the first settlers, warriors bound to their people and their lands. From the remains of ancient colony starships, strongholds were raised, and within them noble lineages took root. These nobles step into battle encased in their armored suits, sworn to defend the citizens who live beneath their watch. Formerly known as the Quaestorius Familia, the Knight Houses trace their origins to Terra itself. Over long millennia, they have shaped a culture of oaths and duty, each house bound to its home world and pledged to the Golden Throne and the Adeptus Mechanicus of Mars. In their quiet halls and on distant fields of war, the echo of those ancient vows still endures. The Centurio Ordinatus belongs to the Divisio Militaris of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and its purpose centers on the Ordinatus war machines. Each of these engines is singular, built for a specific task or moment in war, and named for the world where it first served or was constructed. No two are truly alike, and each carries its own history into battle. Because of this uniqueness, the tech priests who operate them are altered to match the demands of their machine. Their augmetics are shaped for function rather than form, allowing them to guide weapons that exist for one purpose alone. In this way, the Ordinatus stands as a focused expression of the machine god's will, precise and overwhelming. The Legio Cybernetica is among the oldest branches of the Adeptus Mechanicus, devoted to the deployment of autonomous machines for war and support. Its origins reach back to a time before the Imperium, when Mars stood at the heart of an independent empire ruled by the Cult Mechanicus. Those who belong to the Legio see themselves as an elite, carrying a long tradition of service to the Emperor of Mankind. That tradition was fractured during the Schism of Mars, when many within the Legio sided with the War Master Horus and fought through the Horus Heresy. When the conflict ended, the traitor cohorts fled into the Eye of Terror, where time and chaos have left their mark upon them. The loyal remnants remained, binding themselves again to the Imperium with oaths of exceptional severity. Over the centuries that followed, they rebuilt their standing, and the Legio Cybernetica once more earned respect among the Adeptus Mechanicus in the wider Imperium, their machines marching again in the Emperor's name. The Collegiate Extremis serves as the judicial arm of the Adeptus Mechanicus, watching for betrayal of the Omnissiah and weighing such crimes with cold scrutiny. Its role mirrors that of the Adeptus Arbites, yet its focus turns inward, guarding the purity of the machine cult itself. At its center stands the mysterious council known as the Lord's Dragon, an ancient gathering that guides the Collegate's will. Though their true structure is uncertain, it is believed that leaders of the Collegiate reside on Mars, with each forge world answering to a Lord Dragon of its own. Their judgments are enforced by Skitari provosts on the forge worlds, while Magos Juris carry authority across the galaxy. In this way, the Collegiate Extremis acts as an internal inquisition, quiet yet relentless, ensuring that even within the Mechanicus, no heresy goes unseen. Within the Calixus sector, power within the Lath system gathers around the Auxilia Myrmidon, an elite force often seen as a shadowed extension of the Skitari. These tech priests, known as siege engineers or war savants, devote themselves to the study of destruction with the same devotion others give to creation or recovery of ancient knowledge. Legends place their arrival during the Angevin Crusade, and since that time they have remained as guardians of the Cult Mechanicus' holdings. They are sent into the most dangerous reaches of space alongside explorators tasked with retrieving hazardous relics and xenospecimens, or hunting down renegades accused of the gravest techno-heresies. Their ranks follow a strict order, beginning with the Acuitor and rising through Centaurus, Tribune, Magnus, and onward to commanders who control entire legions. Each title reflects a deeper commitment to war in the name of the machine god. In the Collegia sector, another militant path is followed by the divine light of Solex, a mystical tech sect rooted on the death world of Hadrach. Since the 8th century of the 41st millennium, their influence has grown steadily from their forge facilities in the Adrantes Nebula. They are remembered as fervent zealots of the machine god, their devotion cold and uncompromising. To them, the safeguarding of sacred knowledge outweighs wealth, power, or even life itself. In their eyes, the arcane mysteries of the machine cult must be protected at any cost, even from their own kind. The disciples of Thule form a distinct sect within the Cult Mechanicus, guided by the ancient Archmagos Paracelsus Thule. His fleets are vast and far-roaming, vanishing beyond known space for decades at a time, carrying explorators and Magos who absorb his teachings and pass them onward. Their focus rests on uncovering pre-imperial human technology, placing the recovery of mankind's lost past above caution or safety. This pursuit has marked them as a radical yet influential presence within the Collegia sector. They value knowledge above all else, often to the point of distraction, and shun physical conflict whenever possible. Some inquisitors find their curiosity useful, even if it carries risks of its own, and through that curiosity the legacy of Thule quietly persists. The Ordo Reductor exists to design and wield the siege weapons of the Adeptus Mechanicus, shaping instruments meant to break the strongest defenses. Many within its ranks are drawn from the Auxilia Myrmidon, and rumors place these figures on the Mechanicus fiefdom known as the Laths in the Collegia sector. Stories describe them as towering shapes in red and black robes, bearing forbidden weapons from forgotten ages. Around them gather darker legends of Mech-Assassin covenants and the dread Magister Samadhi, names many Magos dismiss as myth. Yet there are whispers that even here, unseen hands guide events, and that the ancient Lord's dragon may watch over the Ordo Reductor, ensuring that the Mechanicus itself never strays too far from its own law. Beyond research and the quiet tending of machines, the Adeptus Mechanicus moves constantly through the daily life of the Imperium, ensuring that its vast structure continues to function without pause. Their presence is felt in the steady hum of power, in the careful preservation of life, and in the guarded flow of knowledge that keeps entire worlds alive. Power is drawn from immense generatoriums, fusion-driven structures whose construction and operation are entrusted entirely to the Mechanicus. These facilities provide the energy that sustains advanced technology across the Imperium, and the knowledge required to build and maintain them is kept close, shared only within the priesthood that oversees them. Life itself is catalogued and controlled within the Genetoriums, where records of plants and animals are maintained to determine what may exist on a world and what must be introduced to make it suitable for humanity. Under the guidance of a Magos biologist, these centers support the work of the Inquisition, while also searching for genetic impurities among human populations and pursuing dangerous mutants, including rogue psychers. Knowledge is gathered and protected within vast librariums on Terra and Mars, where the Mechanicus works alongside the Administratum to store, guard, and reproduce what learning can still be preserved. In an age defined by stagnation, this hoarded understanding becomes a form of power in itself, quietly shaping the survival of the Imperium. Production follows the same careful guardianship as manufactoriums across the Forge worlds are administered and defended by tech priests who ensure a constant supply of goods and machines, offering a yearly tithe of 5% of their gene seed, so it may be monitored, preserved, and used when the High Lords of Terra decree the founding of new chapters, extending the reach of the Adeptus Astartes through the careful hands of the Mechanicus. The servants of the machine gods stand apart within the Imperium, moving through its vast structure as something almost separate, yet deeply entwined. They do not see themselves as bound by many of the laws that guide ordinary humanity, and they openly turn away from much of what the ecclesiarchy teaches. Even so, their presence stretches across the galaxy, constant and unavoidable, because the Imperium cannot endure without them. Without their care, starships would fall silent in the void, armies would never march, raw materials would remain useless, and even the simplest structures would never rise beyond stone and dust. To many, the Adeptus Mechanicus feels unsettling. Its members show little concern for how others perceive them, practicing a faith that feels alien to the Imperial Creed. Their speech barely resembles High Gothic or any local tongue, and their altered forms appear strange even within the Imperium's immense diversity. At the heart of their belief lies devotion to the machine itself, an act of reverence that many who fear the God Emperor find deeply disturbing, if not outright wrong. Their purpose, however, is clear to them. The tech priests follow the quest for knowledge, seeking fragments of wisdom lost since the distant age of strife. They know that humanity has forgotten far more than it remembers, and so they labor endlessly to preserve what remains. Each generation brings more ritual and superstition, and less true understanding, and this slow decline is what they struggle to hold back. In this effort, they descend into sealed vaults of forgotten technology, awaken vast god machines buried beneath ancient battlefields, and attempt to unravel the hidden workings of reality itself. Yet many within the Inquisition watch them with suspicion. To these observers, the Adeptus Mechanicus appears to walk a narrow path between sacred duty and dangerous transgression, a threat as dire as any alien or demon. Such tension has led to countless confrontations. These clashes are usually small, bitter encounters rather than open wars, kept contained by necessity. The Inquisition depends on the Adeptus Mechanicus just as others do, and care is often taken to ensure personal disputes do not grow into wider disaster. Still, resentment lingers on both sides, over autonomy, over interference, never fully at rest. At times, an Inquisitor must seek their aid, drawn by knowledge too specialized to find elsewhere, or by the immense military strength of the Mechanicus, including the towering Titan legions. Alone, an Inquisitor may gain nothing, but through a trusted tech priest, doors can open. From these moments, quiet alliances form, with tech priests serving among acolytes and advisors. Such bonds are never absolute. Loyalty for the Adeptus Mechanicus rests with the Omnissiah above all else. Yet when the purposes of the Inquisition and the servants of the Machine God align, these alliances can endure, calm and practical, serving both sides in the vast, unending labor of the Imperium. Across all of this long remembrance, one truth settles quietly into place. The Adeptus Mechanicus has never truly moved forward or backward, only deeper, layer by layer, into what it already was. From Mars to the farthest Forge worlds, from alliance to schism, from expansion to catastrophe, its path has always been guided by the same patient certainty. Knowledge must be preserved, machines must endure, empires fracture, gods fall silent, and the galaxy itself breaks open, yet the forges continue to burn. Treaties are signed, wars are lost, and worlds vanish into darkness, but the rhythm of industry never truly stops. Even when doubt takes root, when secrecy replaces trust, and faith hardens into obsession, the work goes on, carried by countless hands that no longer remember why they began. In the end, the Adeptus Mechanicus does not seek victory nor salvation, it seeks continuity. As long as the machines still function, as long as something endures to be repaired, recorded, and rebuilt, the red glow of Mars and its children will remain, steady and unyielding, in a galaxy that forgets almost everything else.